Good morning everyone, or good afternoon if you are joining us from the US today. Welcome to a OneStrand information session. This morning's topic is on improving quality and speed of your S1000D review cycle. My name is Tammy Holter and I will be your host today, and I will be joined by Miss Rita Nye from Absolute Data Group, or also now the OneStrand team. This session will run for 45 to 50 minutes, leaving us about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for any questions. A little bit of a background on OneStrand for those in the room that have not attended one of our sessions before. OneStrand is the combination of a shared vision of two industry-leading companies, ADG or Absolute Data Group out of Australia and AEC Inc in the US. Under the OneStrand brand, our companies can provide our customers and partners with the most comprehensive set of solutions available for creating and managing your technical documentation and data. Our solutions are cost-effective, user-friendly, and our comprehensive set of tools provide our customers with everything they need to simply manage the life cycle of their technical documentation. We also offer over 30 years of experience in technical documentation services, including authoring and consulting, and combined with decades of experience developing information software applications. We work closely with regulatory agencies to deliver products and services that meet stringent requirements for our defence and aerospace customers, and we earn our place every day with our customers via our valued and long-term relationships. OneStrand is more than a solution provider, we act as a stakeholder. Taking a look at the S1000D suite that OneStrand has, which is the R4I product suite. These are just a couple of the products, not all of the products in the suite. Fairly common ones that our customers use, such as the R4I CSDB or Common Source Database, which is, of course is used to create, manage and publish critical content to IETP, IETM and other electronic delivery. We have R4I Writer, which is our powerful XML authoring tool. The tool is optimized specifically for S1000D data formats. R4I Writer comes in a couple of editions, including a personal edition if you want to use it standalone without attaching to the CSDB. R4I Viewer, which is our royalty-free online and offline IETM or IETP viewer. We also have Binder, which is a very powerful and easy to use drag and drop tool for creating manuals and handbooks, either to a set template or one-offs via drag and drop. That can be S1000D, MIL Standard, ATA, any type of HTML or XML content can be placed into your book. And we have IPD Manager, which is our illustrated parts data tool. And it's a massive time-saving tool that automatically generates hundreds of IPD data modules in a few minutes from an engineering parts spreadsheet or database. And then we have a last one on the list is to note our hosted S1000D solution, which is the OneStrand Air platform. And this is these products in the cloud. So if you want us to host your CSDB because you'd prefer to not purchase outright software, the hosted platform is one for you to take a look at, and you can see that up at shop.onestrand.com. Right, so on to our presenter today. Good morning, Rita.
Good morning, afternoon, Tammy, whichever part of the planet
you're from, that's right. As mentioned, if you haven't met Rita before or worked with Rita, she's the Senior Consultant at Absolute Data Group, which of course is now part of the OneStrand Group. Rita has 13 years experience in IT, and for the last 9 has been specialising in HTML and XML publishing systems, analysis and development, and specifically in the S1000D dynamic database publishing category, including web and complex print requirement delivery. Rita is also a trainer, obviously, which is why we get her involved in a lot of our education and webinar sessions, and she specialises in the R4I product suite. But along with that, she does have a heritage of working with some of the legacy tools that our customers work with, such as Arbor Text Editor and Adobe FrameMaker. A lot of versions. She's worked with a lot of versions of FrameMaker, from version 7 through to the latest 2017. Rita, of course, is most well known for her legendary style sheet development both XSLT, but in particular she gets involved with some complex flows. So good morning, Rita. It's a chilly one here in Brisbane today, isn't it?
It is a little cool.
It's like not very Brisbane at all.
Although we've got to look forward. It's supposed to be 29C on Saturday and it's supposed to hit 30 on Wednesday next week.
Well, you know, that's not really good for winter, is it?
It's supposed to be our
It's supposed to be winter. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome, Rita. And I am going to toggle the screen over to you, Rita.
Fantastic. Okay, so today I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an agenda as to what we're going to do. So first of all, I'm sorry, we're doing a bit of theory first.
Good.
So we're going to have a little bit of a look at the comment functions that are contained within the S1000D specification. And then once we've had that boring theory side of it, we'll jump across into a little bit of a presentation, and I'll be using writer and reviewer. I'll also do a little bit of a jump into the CSDB as well, but we'll go through and we'll see how that cycle can be managed inside the R4I solution.
Excellent.
Okay, but first of all, Tammy, I would really love to do a little bit of a quick poll for us, please.
Sure.
So what I'd like to know is, on your existing environment or in your existing environment, how do you currently review your content?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that, and we're making an assumption here, of course, that you are already authoring in S1000D,
mm-hmm.
but it could be anything. Are you doing a PDF and then someone is opening up the PDF and writing comments all the way through using normal Acrobat reader functions?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you generate your ATP and then for each data module that you're wanting to view, you want comments, you print it out as PDF and again put comments into it? Or are you using some other method?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're using any other method, if you could pop it into the question panel just so we can get an idea of what's happening.
And are we talking about an internal review here, Rita, or
Does not
external, or either?
Either.
Okay.
Absolutely either. So it doesn't matter if we're talking about internal or external.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort
So
of...
with an end customer potentially, or just even using what you're using internally for that S1000D QA review, subject matter expert review. Okay, so what sort of things are people using right now?
Absolutely. Just trying to find out just so that we can get a little bit of a feel
mm-hmm.
with our attendees as to what they're doing and how they're working with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And
so we've got some comments as well. Okay, so we do have one which is PDF, each data module specifically for review. Okay, and that's, I've heard that's quite a common one actually. People do that. So even if they're in S1000D and they've got a CSDB, they just, as they complete each data module, they just PDF that individual data module and shoot it to someone. So, yep, so I have heard a few customers say they do that. And there we are. Okay, we're now all in. So let me close that and share that with the audience, Rita, so everyone can see the results. And we're sharing. Oh, it's PDF all the way.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, so this is going to be a wonderful little insight and demonstration, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to hide that panel.
Okay, fantastic.
Awesome.
Okay, so what we're looking at for the S1000D specification is how we can process this review what can we do with this review process? So if we look at it from that boring theory side of it, you're going to create your data module or your publication module. It doesn't really matter which one we're talking about.
Yep.
We're still going to create that. And at some point in time, we're going to have verification for that.
Mm-hmm.
It could be during your authoring process, so your internal QA process.
Yep.
Or it could be the in-service phase, so when we're looking at it for a delivery to your customer.
Right, so first delivery as we're going through that cycle.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Now, these comments, they're going to be made by some sort of authority. Mm-hmm. So someone, it's not going to be the general person out on the floor that's most probably going to make these comments initially.
Yep.
It's going to be that process of someone in authority that's going to do it.
Yeah.
And they're going to send that information through. So they're going to manage the deployment of that information.
Yep.
Okay. And then what happens is inside that comment schema, we have the ability for a response from the originator. Mm-hmm. So that's the original prime of the organisation. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have someone create the comment and the prime is going to respond to it.
Mm-hmm. That's obviously an external cycle. If it's an internal, we're talking about an engineer, subject matter expert or a QA person is making the comment, and they're the one with the authority to make the comment, and then we respond back to them.
Correct, and that would then be your authors being able to do the response back.
Excellent.
So
Okay,
we can
either way it works the same sort of way.
Okay, so let's get into some of this. So there are different processes available depending on whether or not you're in military or civilian, of course. And there's different processes between land, sea and air.
Projects, right.
So for an air environment, if we're looking at the military structure, what's going to happen is that first verification. Now, if we all remember back to when we look at our ID status in the data module code, we've got our QA.
Yes.
And we have unverified, first verification, second verification.
That's right, yes.
We do. So if it's first verification, that's going to be controlled by the contractor, the prime. They're going to do that first verification. So that's an internal.
Right.
Then what happens is when you get that content and you issue it to the customer is going to do the second verification. Now that's an optional, so it really does depend on how the project's going to go through. But from a military perspective, that's what you would tend to do. Then if we jump across the other side of the fence to the civilian market, really it's all up to the contractor, the prime. They're the ones that's in charge of the documentation. They're the ones that are going to have to prove and verify that all this content is correct. So again, that's going to be that internal process. Then if we go across to the land and sea side of it, it really doesn't matter, both the military and the civilian markets, it's actually defined by the customer.
Okay, so their project decides.
Yeah. So instead of the contractor being in charge of all of it, the customer really is.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's the land sea projects have a different bias.
Correct. But again, and I'm most probably at the point where everybody hates me saying this word, it's got to be documented in the business rules.
Yeah, like everything. Yep.
So if you're doing a land sea type project, then of course, and it doesn't matter if it's land sea or air, your process that's going to be involved, it's going to be discussed during that implementation process, and you're going to document it.
Clearly document it, yeah.
If you don't document it, then no one's going to know what's happening.
And they're not going to agree when it comes to the time of verification.
Okay. Now, when we're doing this comment process, so when we're doing this review process, the contractor prepares everything, but they've got to allow the customer to have plenty of time to be able to review it. Because if you go, bang, bang, here's your content, see ya, I'm off onto my new project, when's the customer going to come back to you and go,
when's the feedback cycle?
We got problems. So you need that communication flow, and again, it's got to be documented.
And yeah, it's a common sense thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're just going to work through it. Okay, so here's a little bit of a simple workflow, and this is pretty much a straightforward process. So with this, we're going to author the content. It's going to get passed through verification. It's either going to be yes or no to it.
Yep.
And then at some point in time, the originator, that RPC, is going to control it. And at some point in time, it's then going to get to the customer. They're going to accept it, and it then becomes in service. Once it hits in service, then you're into your normal cycle of review.
IATP and change package type.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're going through that very simple flow. So you can see it's quite straight, it's nice and...
So do you never use comment modules then once something is in service?
Absolutely you can.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
from that perspective, you'd most probably look at it from the perspective that if we're thinking of the authorized suite, inside the IATP, an end maintainer may publish a tech note. So that would then come back to the authority.
But the traditional comment module is probably not the one that's going to be used once it's in service. Yeah. Internally you could. Yeah.
That maintainer may send the information through to the
program manager
of the customer, and they may do a comment that then gets sent back to
so the average maintainer out in the field will never, while it's in service, will never be involved. They just use regular tech note or
some sort of print function and markup on it.
Yeah, to send it through to the authority. Yeah.
Correct. So you don't want all of those maintainers needing access to comment modules. They're not going to know what it is.
Yeah.
Why force them to go through this process?
Or having extra tools.
Absolutely. So we can see here, this is a nice simple workflow.
Yep, and this is the basically to the point of in-service.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Of course, we can have much more complex processes. And you look at this one and you go, yep,
Whoa.
okay, and you've really got to read through it, identify what all the information is.
Yep.
So these are straight out of the spec, so there's nothing difficult with them apart from they've gone through that whole process and come up with a much more complex process for what's there. You could use either of these or you can develop your own.
Yeah, so they've just given examples of a really basic and a more complex, but again, you can, like everything with this spec, these are just recommendations and guidelines, so you could build your own, and as long as it's documented in the business rules, everyone's sharing it, we're good to go.
That's the one. You can then identify that process. So again, document it into your business rules. That will then give you that information to go forward from there.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's have a look at this QA process. So when we get to that first QA, so that first verification, you're the contractor. I'm the prime. It's my responsibility. So with that, we're going to look at it and make sure that we've got the correct data modules and technical publications. Go back to our originating project, our DMRL. What data
have we written everywhere we're supposed to?
Have we got them all? Is it fit for purpose?
You would hope so.
Hoping like heck that it is. Does it adequately describe the product? So if you read all that content, does it leave any questions? It's a simple process. You know, okay, there's
what
lots
you would
of
expect.
Content, but is it there? And then we also need to make sure, is it technically accurate? So if a maintainer follows those steps, is it going to work?
Hence the first verification is done internal, right? Because we really want to make sure before it goes out to the customer that we've got all of this down pat.
If you've been able to follow all of those, at the end of the day, it's got to be safe to use by the customer. So if you've got an incomplete process and you give that to the customer and the customer follows the instructions, you can either have something from a very minor issue right through to a major catastrophe.
Yeah, damage to equipment, damage to personnel.
Absolutely anything can happen.
Not cool.
So your first QA process is going
internal.
to do that. And you really want to make sure that your subject matter experts and your authors are all on the same platform and they all know what the required outcome is. Okay, so that's what we start to look for. So one of the options that is provided with the S1000D specification is a comment module.
As part of this process.
Absolutely. And with this, if you're going to author a comment module, so it's got its own schema, and what it does, strangely enough, it's broken into the two components that every data module is. We've got our identification status block and our comment block. Sorry,
content.
Our content block. And inside our ID status block, we have the address and the status. Okay? Instead of being a data module or DM status and a DM address, it's now a comment address and a comment status. So it's following its own schema to be able to manage this. So if we go into that ID status block, the first thing we need to do is we need to give it an identification. It's got to have its own code. So this is straight out of the spec. This is the numbering process that you put in for your identification. So it's going to use the model identification code. You already know
and that makes sense, right?
It's about the project. So you're going to put that one in. You're then going to have your cage code. Who is the organisation issuing
the
that
comment.
information?
Okay.
We then have the year, a sequential number for that year. So we're going to need to have some sort of method to manage all of that. And then we have the type of comment that's available. And we've only got 3 of them. Option number 1, Q, query. I'm asking something about it. Once you've raised the query, you can then have either an interim, I, or a final, R. That's it. It's an interim or a final response. It's not like an email.
So it's a short conversation. Basically, you're raising a query, there's an interim response and or final response. Okay.
That's it. So it's not like your email notifications. So your email messages. You type a question.
We reply and we had a conversation for a week.
It can go on and on and on.
No.
In a comment, no, it's out the window.
Short and sweet.
It's query, response, either interim and or final or straight to final.
Mm-hmm.
If the person who raised that initial query still doesn't believe that that's correct, they've got to raise another query.
Comment. Right, okay.
Okay, so it's a very short process, very simple, very condensed. Okay, so we've got to have all of that information. So you can see straight away we've got a lot of management functions happening here that an end customer or even a subject matter expert, they're not necessarily going to know how to build this code.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking you immediately go, okay, you're not going to have the average project that you're delivering to, even if it's the program office, you're not going to have them being forced to, you know, have an S1000D authoring tool and prepare comment modules and number them correctly, like, you know, so hence you want a tool to do that, right?
Absolutely. Okay, when we get down into the comment status section, again, it looks really similar to what we have inside our DM status. So we've got our security classification. So we're going to put in our security classification. We need to put in our comment priority, and there's only 3 of those. So you've got routine, emergency, or safety critical.
Okay, that seems fair.
Very simple.
Yeah.
We've got to have some sort of comment reference. So that's either going to reference off to what data module it belongs to.
Which again makes sense.
Which makes sense. And we need to reference to the breaks. Because again, it's got to comply to your business rules.
Yeah.
Okay, you can also see that we've got comment response and remarks as optionals as well, and data restrictions. So again, it's back to the project as to what information needs to be included in this comment module. Then we come down to our content section, and inside our content section, we have a mandatory simple para, and it's 1 to infinity. So we've got to have at least 1 para inside the comment.
If you're making a comment, you need to probably actually add the comment.
Absolutely. So you need to put that information in.
Yep.
And we can also put in an optional attachment. And traditionally, as the attribute function, we're looking at Word, Excel, and PDF are the most common ones that you're going to have as an attachment.
Yeah.
So we're putting all of that information together into this comment module.
And that makes sense because, I mean, sometimes people will, it's easier to literally, you know, make a comment that, oh, you know, please refer to, you know, this document or this information or, you know, and they can literally attach a whole file for you to be able to reference on why there's something wrong with this, you know, particular information.
Okay, so as you said, there's no way an end author is going to want to do that, or an end user.
Yeah, like a program office, or even internally, if we're talking about the first internal review,
even
engineers,
they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show how it can work with
our tools.
Yeah,
where they don't have to know how to, they don't have to have an authoring tool, they don't have to know anything about S1000D, they can still create a comment module, but it's going to be done in the background for them.
Correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment to a data module inside for Viewer using the reviewer tools.
Okay, so we've got to the point we're doing our first verification, let's say.
Yep.
So the authors have done their job. It's going for first verification with engineers and subject matter experts and QA people, and they're going to use reviewer.
Yep. So they're going to use reviewer. Then we're going to jump across into writer.
Yep.
And we're going to be able to see that comment.
Yep. So I'm the author again. I've got feedback from the engineers, etc. Yep.
So I'm going to see that information. I'm going to update my data module, and then I'm going to put a response in. And then from there, I'm then going to go back into Viewer and see that response.
Yep.
So that's the process that we're going to do.
So that end response back in Reviewer is for the engineers to see what was done. So to see that the change has been made or what they expected or the response from the author.
Absolutely.
Rightio.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into Viewer.
Yep.
Now I'm actually going to use this in online mode.
Yep.
So I'm going to physically connect into my database.
Yep. So obviously comment modules can be added offline or online. Traditionally, while it's going through an internal cycle, because we've all got access internally to the CSDB, you'd lose online. So you're connecting as an engineer with Viewer online to the CSDB. So you're a subject matter expert.
Yep. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm then going to go into Writer to be able to see that information.
Mm-hmm. So
hopefully, if my computer actually wants me to
start today
into Viewer. Okay. So instead of using the offline, I'm using the online.
Yep.
And with that, you can have multiple repositories that are available.
Obviously, we do have multiple repositories.
Okay. We're then going to log in with the user account and password that's been assigned to us. Okay.
Yep.
And then we go open, and it's then going to physically connect to that repository.
Yep.
And show all the folders that I'm entitled to see.
Okay, so traditionally, because we're talking about a view-only user, so this is a classic, an engineer that's never going to author content, but we do want them to offer comments and feedbacks to be able to use and access content easily. So they've got like a viewer status in the CSDB, and so hence they have to have their own log on as well.
Correct. And again, you can set their permissions. So you can set it up.
Certain folders, all folders, the usual. So usual CSDB security.
Absolutely. Total usual position. Okay. So here's my CSDB, and I can see all my folders. If I jump into my database, which I've already got open, you can see I've got that same folder structure available in here. So again, I'm seeing all of that same information. Whether you're a CSDB writer or viewer in this particular case, but like you said, there's a chance that some engineers would only be given access to certain folders and files because that's all they're responsible for. Okay, and remember, of course, for them to be able to see this content, it's got to be published. So it has to be published. And we can see up here that we have our reviewer tools. Now, because I'm in online mode, the additional functions that are available with the reviewer license, which is the link validation and encryption, they're disabled. You can't do those.
You don't want to encrypt the CSDB.
No. So we physically disable those. And if I go and select a data module, doesn't matter which one I pick on, so let's do the usual other procedures to clean. If I open this, it's going to launch that data module in normal mode. So that means it's a fully operational IETP. I can navigate around.
You can check functionality, links, read everything.
I can see all my content. Okay. Now, if I change that and say I want to open it for review, if I click onto that, I then go into review mode. So if I, again, open this data module, what's going to happen is I'm now launching this into that review mode format. And what we can see, if we have a look, it looks a little bit different. So first of all, we get our little bracket here. And if we look at our links, they're now actually with underlines. So when you're in review mode, the linking is not going to work.
No, so you basically, you read data modules, you bounce around, use all the links, etc. And then if you go, oh, there's something wrong with this data module, you basically switch to review mode because you're now able to highlight text and add comments, right? So that's why it doesn't link and stuff anymore.
Correct. And, you know, the presentation can look quite different in review mode compared to real mode.
And so normally if you find a problem, you add your comment and then I gather you turn review back off. If you're then continuing to test links and read other data modules.
So what you do, you look at your content and you identify the problem. So let's say that there's something wrong with this section here. Okay, we've got our review block up here.
Okay, you've got a set of tools,
where we can add comments or we can right-click and go add comment. So if we go add comment, what it does is it launches my comment window. And it said it's comment number 1 at the moment, and you can see here the sequence number is to be advised. Because we don't know anything
saved anything yet.
And we can see here, here's our priorities. There's only 3 of them.
The 3 that you said,
So we can choose which one it is. We can see it's referenced, so it's actually referenced to our
automatically linked to the data module we're in.
We can put in the title, the subject as to what the problem is. And then we can put the details about
the issue,
what the issue is and what needs to be done. So you can put all those details. Every time...
And this is like, if you hit your enter key, this is the multi-para thing you were talking about?
Simple para. So we're putting in, and you can put as many paragraphs as you want.
They are just simple paragraphs,
they're
though.
just simples. You can't do any bolding, you can't do any of that, so there's no emphasis or anything.
Hence, you can attach external documents, though, so if you wanted to or needed to supply more detail.
So if we needed to attach, there's our attach file function.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been able to put that information in. If I now click to save that comment, it's saved that information, it's got it all ready, and I can continue to go through and do a review. So if I also identify that there's a problem with this, does it relate to...
Is it the same issue?
Is it the same issue, or is it a new comment? So again, I can right-click and I can append it.
If it's related to the same, yeah.
Or I can add a new comment.
Okay, nice.
Okay,
yeah.
And now you can see that this one might be a routine.
Yeah.
So we've now got 2, and again, if I save it, now have you noticed the IDs?
Yes, and the colours as well. Yeah, because the emergency's got a yellowy orange on it, and the note, this one's just a routine. It looks more like a blue note style colour.
If I put in another one and set it to safety critical, it would be
red. Yes, okay, so they stand out.
So they do stand out. And when you click onto the numbers, it actually highlights the information.
Flicks to the note that you're referring to.
So it actually shows you that information.
And actually, I'm noticing 2 things there. So one, it highlighted the text that you had attached the note to, but also over on the right panel, it toggles between the notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we've now got a sequence number.
Oh, it's okay. It's setting them up. Yep.
It's actually putting in that information. So we can then see our sequence numbers as well. So it keeps a record of all of that information. Okay, so now I've saved all of that.
Can I assume, so sorry, the sequence numbers are what number we're up to in the CSTB, is that right? Yep, okay.
Yep, so it'll look at what you've got inside your CSTB and go forward from there.
Right.
Okay, so I've saved both of these comments, and what I can do then is I can save my review package. So these 2 comments are using the comment modules. So all of that theory that we just went through.
It's written out. It's 2 comment modules for me.
It has.
And I didn't have to know anything about S1000D, and I didn't have to have an authoring tool.
No.
Right, good.
Okay.
I like it.
If I then go save, this is the part that we write, which is our review package. So this is proprietary for our system to be able to interrogate and understand that information. So it then saves that information. And then if I go and click on Sync Review Data, what it does is it writes that review data
into the CSTB. Okay, and so now we've got comment modules in the CSTB, and they're attached and associated with the data module that I was working on when I attached the comment.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so I've now been able to add all of that information in.
So obviously the writer's now notified that there's comments that have been associated.
So again, if I jump into my CSTB, so I'm working on this one here, this other procedures to clean, so 258B.
Yep.
Not 258A, but 258B. And you can see here on the right-hand side, I've got a little chat window.
Yep.
That tells me that there's a comment against this data module.
Yep.
So I've got a visual aid.
That said that worked.
That worked.
You physically can see that. Yep.
If I jump into my repository and if I have a look, let's just make sure I'm grabbing the right one. So
258B.
There's my 258B. You can see there's no comment.
At the moment,
At the moment.
Yep.
If I go refresh.
Yep, because it's just been inserted.
There's my comment icon.
Yep.
Okay. And inside the CSTB, I can also do review. So I can do it from within the CSTB as well.
Yep. So people that have got, the broader basic tools can do it from there as well.
So even if they've got, say, another authoring tool, so if they're using Arbortext,
oh yes, they still need to know that they can.
They need to do it from here. So then they would open it in review mode here, and they'd be able to see everything.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So we can do that.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, I am on my laptop monitor, which is not as big as my monitors.
Yeah.
So here's my repository. I'm just going to refresh. Because I want to get the latest information from the repository.
Okay, so now you are the writer. We're in R4I Writer. You've been told that the engineers have reviewed the content, and so we could have done that via our task management workflow notices. Yep. And so you're jumping in and you're going to go have a look at the comments about it.
I am. So there's that data module.
Yep.
Procedures to claim.
Yep.
I don't have my tech names here, but I know that that's the one I want.
Yep.
So I'm just going to check that out. Just a double click to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Such a nice, simple system. And what happens is, here's my data module. And if I scroll down into the content, so I'm just going to collapse some of this so that I don't have as much information
On
showing.
Yep.
Okay, and let's get rid of our prelims. And you can see here, it's just the normal text that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing special here.
Yep.
But if you have a look on our toolbar, see review is enabled?
Yes. Yep.
And review over here. So you've got two ways to launch the review window. Doesn't matter which one you use, they work exactly the same.
Yep, so the button down, the icon button or the main button, yep.
If I click onto that review button, what it's going to do is it's going to launch my review window. Now this is where you really do need to have a good size monitor, because what it does, okay. So
now you've got your authoring window on the left, you've got the viewer window in the middle, and you've got the notes on the right. Okay.
And what you want to do is you want to make sure
you can see everything.
You can see everything.
Yep.
Okay, so in here it shows I've got 2 comments.
Yes.
If I scroll down into my content, we can see our 2 notes.
Oh, hold on, it's catching up to you. Yep, we're there. Yep.
Okay, and again, when we click onto the note, it highlights the text and it shows that note in my comment. So again, I'm now able to see all of this information.
And you can jump into the writer screen, do any modifications if necessary based on the issue.
Yep, so if I come down into my content, so I'm in my second para, and it's not happy about the levers, the knobby tyres and the brakes. So that's the section here. So we can then either remove that, replace it, or
add the detail that's required, because obviously it's a pretty hazardous one, saying it's got a emergency detail on it,
So we're identifying that. So you make the relevant changes based on the feedback that's there. So we've now updated our data module to reflect that information. But we now need to actually give a response back as well.
Of which we've got the choice of interim or a final.
Or both.
Yes, that's right. If we need to pass through an interim.
Correct. So that's really going to be based on what your internal processes are. So you could have it set up that no interims are allowed.
So it's a totally business rules driven thing.
You put in those decisions and you then document it. And you then go through. If you're going to use an interim, then it needs to be defined as to how you're going to use the interim.
What are you allowed to do?
So that we can identify that information.
Because you don't get the chance at 2 interims, like it's 1 interim and a final anyway. So
that's it. So over here you can see I've got my little plus symbol. And that allows me to put in my response. So when I click onto that, I get my response and I can choose interim or final. Back to my business rules, how am I doing this? So if this one is, look, I've made the changes, that's it, I'm not interested any further, I can then say this is a final response. And then I can
completed the changes.
Details about what has been done. So you're going to, again, put in that comment of what have I done, or what, it could be a simple thing that the information that's there, the final response could be, no, that's true and correct.
Done.
That's it. Done.
Close it. You got to start another comment if you disagree.
Absolutely. So we go through that process. And you can see, bring it back, you can see I've got 2 little icons. One is to delete the comment. So if I put the wrong comment details in, I can still delete it. Or I can save it. So if I save it, it's now saved in my authoring environment.
Ready for you to submit to the CSDB.
Anything else.
Not in the CSDB yet.
Just saved it. I then go through.
Because you might have several to do.
You might have several comments that you've got to do. So you go through each comment and make the relevant changes and updates. Once we've done that, we can then save. And it then gets to a point where we've got a commit or an auto commit. Now, I don't know about you, but I hate it when software does things automatically for me. So I won't use
So you can
automate.
turn on an auto commit.
So
okay.
when you go
Save on that bar up there,
it automatically commits it into the database.
Okay, yeah.
So again, it's your choice as to how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be able to go
decide when I'm ready to commit. Yeah.
I'm now committed to doing this.
Yeah.
So then I go commit. And what that does is it physically writes it into the database.
Yep.
So now that comment's been put in, and I can now check in that data module.
Yep. So your changes are made, you've given some feedback on the comment, and we're now committing it and checking the data module back in.
Yep. And add comments if it's required.
Yep.
That's again your business process as to whether or not you need to put a comment.
Comments when you change content.
When you're checking in your file.
Yep.
That's your business process. So that's not me. You know, so here it's telling me that I am checking it in on the 10th of August. Of course, you know, we're Thursday here. I know it's still Friday,
Wednesday in the US.
But it's there.
Yeah.
And then I simply go check in, and it confirms that it's checked that file in. Okay, so it's now checked the data module in. If I jump across to my CSDB, so we're currently on version 1.1.
Yep.
If I do a refresh, it now tells me I'm on the internal version number 1.2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's recognised that change has
made.
occurred.
Yep.
So we've now got to the point where we've got the content there.
Mm-hmm.
So now, through the tasking system again, someone would then notify the subject matter expert.
Yep.
Please review the information.
Yep.
So they would then come back into the reviewer.
Yep.
Or interviewer. And because I've been in here, I'm just going to do a refresh to make sure I've got the latest connection of information. And what I want to do is I want to open my 258B data module. I'm still in review mode.
Yep.
So I haven't changed any of that.
Yep.
So if I double click to launch this, it's going to launch it in review mode.
Yep.
And we can see our 2 comments are here. What we need to do then is click on Sync Review Data, and what that will do is it will then retrieve the information from the repository.
So the answer cycle. Yep.
And if I go to my first one, we come down into the content. Okay, you can see there's my changes.
Yep, so we can see the changes they made, and
there's my
the writer said that it's been done.
Yep. Okay, so we can then see that cycle going through with this content. So irrespective of what we're doing in terms of the back end of this, yes, we're using the comment module. The author and the SME
are just using review tools and writing tools.
The review tools. So for the subject matter experts, they can open this up, they can look at the content, they can identify the issues,
comment,
send it through. So because you're not waiting for the full publication,
or even PDFing single data modules and emailing them, and
absolutely.
And I guess, and it's an officially tracked system, isn't it? Because every comment is actually physically stored in the database and associated with the actual data module that it referred to.
Because what happens is, you can see down here I've got a little tab to say what version I'm in. So it actually tells me where it is. But if I go into the CSDB, if this has got multiple comments, they'll actually be against each internal version number.
Specific number,
So you'll actually see the full history of every single comment.
Because we just did 1.2, and as you said, if we've gone to final, that's done and dusted. So if the engineer had something else to say now, they'd have to start another comment anyway, but of course it would now be associated with 1.2.
Correct.
Right.
So inside the CSDB, you can actually see all the history.
Yeah.
So it really does give you that very good flow.
Yep, so every worked on version could have comments associated with it. Yep.
Absolutely. So you're not going to get any instance of, I don't know who did that, because it's all going to be documented inside the CSDB. So you can then see all of that information and identify all of that information. So it gives you that historical information to help you with managing your content. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to manage the content and have that workflow. So if you're waiting for a PDF to be generated emailed to you, then you've got to review it.
Mm-hmm.
The authors, they could, depending on how long it takes for all of those PDFs to be generated,
yeah.
you could end up having the author on a new project or a new section.
Yeah, kind of they're out of that mindset already. They're working on something else.
They're on something else. They're now focused on something totally different.
Yeah.
So when they get feedback, they've got to look at it and go,
yes,
scratch their head, put their head back to where it was before, and start identifying the information.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, as an author has finished, the data module manager team can be pushing out these review notifications to the reviewers and get that cycle really happening. So the author could get feedback while they're still working on the next few data modules that still relates to that particular topic. So we can have quite a faster process.
And certainly customers that are using this process for internal review, we've had excellent feedback from. They've said the speed up on the cycle, and of course they do love the the kind of the officialness and tracking as well that you get with the process. So
absolutely, it just makes life so much easier.
More controlled, more efficient, faster. Yeah.
Yep. So that's the sort of process that we can have. Okay, so just so that people are aware, there's our contact details.
Yes.
So at any point in time you can connect with us. So if you do have any queries about anything that we've covered during this session, please don't hesitate to connect with us.
Yep.
Okay, and it basically gets to a point now where we're on questions.
Questions. Wonderful. Okay,
so
thank you, Rita.
If you have questions, please shoot them through.
Yep, that was an excellent session, a bit of the background on what a comment module is in the first place from an actual S1000D specification perspective, and then, of course, how we've implemented that spec item to make it much easier than having to have, like you said, engineers, subject matter experts, or external people having to have an authoring tool on and know how to produce a comment module.
Absolutely.
So we'll leave the question panel up for a second and just see if anyone has any questions. If not, thank you for your time this morning, Rita. And we do have another session in September. The details haven't quite been advertised yet.
Yep. We're not sure yet.
So which one we're doing. We've got a couple in a row that we're deciding which one's going to be coming next, and so we will be announcing that in the next week or so. And we have recorded today's session, of course, so if anyone missed out or they've got a colleague that they think would benefit from seeing it, we will be shooting out notices. As we exit today, there'll be an exit survey to just ask what you thought of the session and any recommendations on what we can change or what you'd like to have discussed in the future.
Yep. So always looking forward to feedback from customers to give us details on
and what they're looking for.
What they'd
Absolutely.
like to see.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I don't think we've got any questions this morning, Rita, so hopefully that means you've done a great job. I thought you did. So thank you, everyone, for attending and being with us this morning, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.